Iran will be wiped off the face of the earth. Has the date for an Israeli-American strike been set? Escalation in the Arabian Gulf. Missiles from Iran hit the Emirates. Fires were reported in several locations. A new assessment from the American intelligence. Iran can still break through to a nuclear bomb within 1 year. The Middle East is standing before a dramatic change with the expiration of Trump's ultimatum to Iran. President Trump is wavering between the desire to end the campaign through negotiations and the growing pressure to deliver a decisive blow. For the first time since the ceasefire, the Revolutionary Guards are launching an attack. Iran fired 12 cruise missiles towards the United Arab Emirates. An oil facility was hit. In the United Arab Emirates, they are expecting an American and Israeli response in the immediate time frame. In Israel, we are preparing for the collapse of the ceasefire and are ready for an immediate response. Against the background of the significant escalation in the Gulf, the IDF is on heightened alert, both for striking and for observing attacks. The Americans updated Israel on the operational plans to break the naval blockade in Hormuz and raised concern that the Iranians would attack vessels or countries in the Gulf. And now, everyone is waiting to see whether the Iranians have decided to escalate and by doing so, play directly into the hands of the United States. And while Trump is determined to release the escort the ships struck in Hormuz, it appears that before the launchers from Iran towards the Emirates, the Iranians may go wild and respond forcefully across the entire Middle East. And right now, the chances of a return to fighting with double intensity are increasing. And in Israel, it seems that the negotiations with Lebanon are just grinding water, meant to drive Hezbollah crazy. And at the same time, despite the collapse of the negotiations with Hamas, Israel will not return at this stage to fighting in the Gaza Strip. I'm Meir Pinto, with me is Mati Shoshani, and we are boots on the ground, bringing you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel and also the whole truth about what's happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. And this is the opening of day 67 of the war, Roaring Lion, or by its American name, Epic Fury. The United States has launched an operation to free the Strait of Hormuz, while Iran continues to rebuild its power and dictate the tone also in northern Israel through Hezbollah, a terrorist organization that is acting as its proxy. In Israel, we estimate that the current framework will not hold for very long. And against the background of the significant escalation in the Gulf, the IDF is on heightened alert, both for striking and for observing attacks. In Israel, we are preparing for escalation following the Iranian attack in the Emirates. And a senior official makes clear that Israel is ready to return to fighting immediately. This is subject to a green light from the United States. It seems that this is Tehran's final gamble. The Revolutionary Guards know that the United States used the ceasefire to concentrate forces and intelligence in the Strait of Hormuz, and that a confrontation with them will almost certainly end in a painful humiliation for Iran, which will also endanger the regime. And in order to protect their final bargaining chip, Iran has moved into a frontal attack against the United Arab Emirates and Oman, and Israel could be next in line. Yesterday, the American Navy broke through the Iranian blockade on the strait and safely escorted 2 ships out. The commander of CENTCOM announced that Iran fired cruise missiles towards the American ships, and the United States Navy eliminated 6 small boats. The commander of U.S. Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, confirmed to Reuters that Iran had earlier attacked commercial and military American ships in the area of the Strait of Hormuz with cruise missiles, drones, and small boats. According to him, the United States destroyed 6 small Iranian boats that tried to interfere and intercepted the missiles and the drones that were launched. He also said that the Iranian forces are strongly advised to stay away from the United States military assets. I want to take 1 second to point something out, because Iran said that the United States is lying and that no Iranian ships were attacked. And I have to prove that what we are reporting is true and that the American strike is actually happening. So to tell the truth, it was easy to verify, because a few hours ago, the Iranian news agency Mehr reported that several barrages and boats caught fire at the port in the city of Bandar Dair in Bushehr province in southern Iran. And according to the Iranians, the cause of the fire is unknown and mysterious. We're in a war where it is hard to verify information, and Iran is spreading many lies and fake news. So we are truly working hard to bring you an updated and accurate picture of what's happening. So let's continue. In addition, from our side, we checked deeply in order to bring you all the information, whether the blockade was truly broken and whether the United States escorted the ships out. It's important to us that you are able to see the truth through all of the flood of information that's happening right now. So the commercial shipping company, Mersak, announced that it crossed the Strait of Hormuz with American escort without interference. And at the same time, media outlets in Iran claim that the United States attacked 2 civilian boats that were carrying goods towards Iran and that 5 people were killed. So it is clearly possible to see that the American military is working like a machine on what is required of it. US President Donald Trump threatened in an interview that Iran will be wiped off the face of the earth if it attacks the American vessels. The Emirati Ministry of Defense announced that Iran fired 19 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, and 4 drones. Anwar Gargash, the advisor to the president of the United Arab Emirates, referred to the Iranian attacks and wrote on X that Iran's dangerous escalation and the attack against civilians are a sign of the moral bankruptcy of a regime that chose aggression as its way of dealing with the neighbors. The Emiratis will not be deterred by this escalation and will not allow it to dictate the future of relations in this region. And once again, Iran miscalculated. In response, the Iranian Tasnim news agency quoted a military source from the Revolutionary Guards who declared, "If the Emiratis make mistakes, it will learn a lesson it will never forget. If it takes an unwise action, all of its interests will become a target for Iran." End quote. Look, on the American table, there are 2 alternatives: an urgent demand for an Iranian declaration of surrender, an acceptance of the American demands, or a wide-scale attack on energy targets and national infrastructure that will paralyze the country for years and destroy the Revolutionary Guards in Iran. And apparently, Israel will have to eliminate the extremist leadership layer of the Revolutionary Guards. Write me in the comments, what do you think about this? But just wait. It's important that we bring you the situation inside Iran, because that's also very complicated. In recent days, we have been explaining a lot about the Revolutionary Guards in Iran that are taking control over all of Iran. And it is very noticeable for easy reasons to see this. For example, the attack that Iran launched was coordinated only within the Revolutionary Guards. Here's the truth. The Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, was furious yesterday with the Revolutionary Guards commander, Ahmed Vahidi, because of the attacks in the Strait of Hormuz and in the United Arab Emirates and Oman, which were carried out without the government's knowledge. According to the report, Pezeshkian called for an urgent meeting with Supreme Leader Mujtaba Khamenei to stop this escalation. The president called the attacks madness and complete irresponsibility that could lead to irreversible consequences. And right now, the American intelligence has raised an extremely worrying issue. Is the enriched uranium that disappeared from the radar and could become 10 nuclear bombs already in the process of becoming a bomb? The United States and Israel are in an arms race against the clock, against Tehran's nuclear project. Despite massive Israeli and American strikes and daring defensive operations, excuse me, the new intelligence assessments reveal a complex situation in which the Iranian nuclear timeline was barely affected. American intelligence estimates that despite the recent war, the time Iran would need to build a nuclear bomb has not changed since last summer, and that it is still around 1 year. This was reported by Reuters from 3 different sources familiar with the details. And according to the updated intelligence assessments, Iran's nuclear program has not undergone broad changes. President Donald Trump is intensifying the confrontation with Europe's allies and declaring his intention to carry out a massive reduction in the military manpower on the European continent. The move, which stems, amongst other things, from the refusal of countries like Spain and Italy to assist in the war against Iran, is raising deep concerns in NATO and other senior European defensive officials who feel damage to the deterrence against Russia and disruption of logistical capabilities in the Middle East. And the President of the United States, Donald Trump, announced for the first time in history a national Sabbath, marking 250 years of the country's independence. The declaration was signed as part of the White House statement for the Jewish American Heritage Month, according to which the initiative, called Sabbath 250, will take place from the start of Sabbath on Friday evening, May 15, until its end on Saturday night, May 16th. Orthodox Jewish organizations published an official statement of support for the move and called on the Jewish public to participate in it as a sign of appreciation for the religious freedom in the United States. President Trump noted in his declaration that this day will honor the sacred Jewish tradition of dedicating time to rest, introspection, and gratitude to God. And regarding the question that I have been getting from all of you a lot over the past week, will there be another round of fighting? In the current situation, Israel and the United States cannot live and continue to operate while Iran remains with the nuclear project and with the enriched uranium, while the Revolutionary Guards behave like the neighborhood bully who controls Hormuz through fire or threats. So it seems that we all know where this is going. And I'm Yair Pinto, and with me is Mati Shoshani, and we are boots on the ground, bringing you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel. And this is day 67 of the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And 1 second before we continue, I want to call on you to keep sharing the truth. You can do that, but hit the subscribe button. You can leave us a comment on this YouTube channel. Let me know where you're watching from. I'm curious. You can like this video, share it with a friend or a family member, and you can search for Yair Pinto and Mati Shoshani on our social media platforms to get a behind-the-scenes look of what it's like to live in Israel during this war. Now, with us joining this live is our Middle East correspondent, Mati Shoshani. So Mati, how are you doing? It's good to have you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Yair. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, I can hear you very well. And everywhere I go in Israel, when I'm talking to people in the street, people are voicing their opinion, as Israelis like to do. And their understanding is that another round of fighting, of conflict, of rockets coming between Israel and Iran is about to happen every single day now. So what's happening here in this region? What are the chances that this war will turn into another live confrontation? And does the strikes against the Gulf states, Oman, the UAE, an indication of what's about to happen in the wider Middle East and here in Israel?
Well, I'll give you the answer Yair, everyone in Israel gave just before this war broke out. The answer is yes, absolutely. Today the strikes come. And if I'm wrong, play this video again tomorrow. But to our point, look, it's been over a month of this, and again, there's these warnings of, we're about to break back into violence. We're about to break back into violence, and I want to tell you what I think happened yesterday wasn't a miscalculation. It was actually the Iranian regime teasing or trying to get the U.S. to strike against them again by attacking their neighbors in the Gulf. And this isn't the first time they've done this. They've done this repeatedly. There's a problem here. The Iranian regime and the Iranian people aren't sharing the same interest. The Iranian people obviously don't want to go back to war. The Iranian regime actually benefits internally if they go back to war, because they can say, look, we are peaceful. We've tried to bring peace, and these violent Americans have attacked us once more. They don't care about, obviously, the safety of their people or the situation. They tried to bring more violence, more bloodshed to the region. But it gets more complicated than that. Right now, no one benefits and no one gains anything from going to war. The US has a limited strike that it's planning to carry out against the Iranians. That really doesn't change the bottom line. They still can disrupt trade in the Strait of Hormuz. They can still launch ballistic missiles at Israel and other countries, and they still will be pushing for a nuclear bomb. That doesn't change. That simply doesn't change. And even for the Iranians, it doesn't really change anything in the situation. But we get to these points sometimes where tension is so high, and everyone is getting, anxious. When are we going to fight again? All it takes is a small mistake, someone to miscalculate, someone to fire a missile, and it all explodes again, literally. And it seems like we're there. We're in this bizarre situation where we're so close, and everything is so tense, and the Iranians are just waiting for something to happen. The Americans are waiting for an excuse for something to happen. Then we might go there. So far, the American government has shown a lot of restraint, considerable amount of restraint, but that might not last forever. The Iranians might push enough buttons for there to be no choice but to go back into some kind of limited conflict once more.
Mati, the attacks, according to our reports that we are receiving, were not coordinated with the Iranian government. So the Revolutionary Guards launched these attacks without coordinating with the Iranian army or with the Iranian president. So who's actually leading the country, and are we already seeing the rifts from within?
I think there are two ways to look at this information. One, to take it at face value and say, oh, I guess the Iranians have multiple factions leading the country, and so it makes sense that one side says one thing and another side says the other thing. Another way to look at this is this is part of their negotiation tactic, and something they've used in the past too, where they claim that people are working against the orders of the government, sort of creating a situation of plausible deniability. It wasn't us. We asked the Houthis not to fire, but those Houthis, they're so hot-headed, they just went and fired. Same thing over here. They say one thing, and then the next day, someone goes and does something else, and they say, look, we really, really wanted to, but it wasn't us. We tried, but you've killed so many of our leaders that there simply isn't leadership. I want to sort of clear the mess for just a second. Look at what the Iranian government's been able to do. One, they're able to send their foreign minister to meet with other leaders with a clear policy and clear requests of the West. When they want to, and it's convenient for them, they're able to speak with a very clear voice about what they're planning to do. And when it doesn't suit them, and they want to create the perception that their government is not unified, that there's wars between the different factions in the government, between the IRGC and the Ayatollahs, maybe between the supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, who knows how he's doing, alive or not, well or not, we're not sure. Suddenly, it's very convenient for them to say, well, that wasn't us. We tried to stop, but they're just not listening. I think the best thing we can do now is that you look at us as this, this wild card that can't be anticipated, and we use this tactic for a while. And that's really what it is. It's a negotiation tactic to a great degree. There is a split in their leadership. There are several voices over there, but to launch a barrage of ballistic missiles, yeah, come on. We say in the Middle East, come on, guys, who are you fooling? We know it wasn't like one guy that pressed the red button and ran away. There was a whole decision-making process that did that on specific targets against specific enemies to try and sabotage or to restart the violence. Because again, the Ayatollah regime benefits from the war continuing. They don't lose from it, they benefit from it. The Iranian people, well, they lose if the war continues.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't think that the Iranian regime cares about the Iranian people that are suffering severely from the economic situation, not to speak about the fact that they don't have internet for, I don't know how long, 67 days straight, or maybe they had, a few brisks of very low quality internet reception, while the Iranian officials have a special SIM card that can grant them fast internet so they can continue to communicate. But Mati, the major issue of this war from the beginning was the enriched uranium and the fact that the Iranians will be able to reach nuclear bomb capabilities within 1 year. And according to an intelligence report that we are receiving now from the Americans, they can now, after the strikes, still reach a nuclear bomb or 10 of those within 1 year. So what have changed, and what does the United States and Israel need to do in order to terminate this threat?
This is a complicated question from multiple levels. One, I'm not sure it's true. To make a statement that says that after 2 rounds of war, the Iranian nuclear program hasn't been damaged at all, I feel like someone has an agenda in saying that, and the agenda is to continue striking the Iranians. I want to be blunt about that. The Americans have bombed the Iranian facilities underground and made it much harder to extract enriched uranium. Israel and the Americans have bombed significantly the manufacturing processes related to the ballistic missiles and the nuclear facilities, and much of the chain of the command of the Iranian nuclear program has been eliminated. So to say it had no impact, I don't know. I want to say something else. We've heard this before. We heard this from IAEA, the International Agency of Atomic Energy officials, a year ago and several years ago, after they for years were telling us that they had restricted and surveilled the Iranian nuclear program, only to come out and say, actually, they did whatever they wanted and we have no idea what's actually going on the ground. Remember, they suddenly came out with this number that said something bizarre, like, we suddenly discovered that they have thousands of kilos of enriched uranium to varying degrees that we never knew about their existence. And you really need to wonder sometimes with these organizations, and I know this sounds like a conspiracy theory, because it is, that they lie. Sometimes they feel uncomfortable telling us the truth. Sometimes they like exaggerating the truth of what really exists on the ground in Iran because it promotes their agenda. And that's the simple reality over here. Let me tell you what I know. You can't stop the Iranians from reaching a nuclear bomb by bombing them one time. Once they have the information, and they have the information on how to get to a bomb, they ultimately will get to that bomb if you don't continue bombing them and taking away their ability. It's a continuous effort to create one and a continuous effort to prevent them from having nuclear capabilities. That's a reality we need to live with and contend with. But they have been delayed. They have been struck. They have been diminished in their ability to reach nuclear bomb capabilities. A year sounds like a very short timeline for me. It sounds like someone, or someones, plural, have an agenda to make us feel like there's a sense of urgency in going back and attacking Iran again. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. We have a problem. If we're unable to reach an agreement with the Iranians, which is what feels like the scenario right now, where they're willing to do almost anything to avoid actually negotiating properly or in good faith in this situation, we, Israel, we, the United States, need to be sure that they can't make a run for the bomb. And to do that, we or need a significant strike against their current nuclear facilities, or to extract their enriched uranium, or to do both of those things, plus have surveillance and supervision on the ground in Iran to prevent them from making a run for a nuclear bomb again. So there's PR mixed into this, there's conspiracy mixed into this, and of course, an enormous web of lies and deception that the Iranians are spreading. Let me end just with one last conspiracy, since we've been on this topic, Yael. What if the Iranians actually have no ability to push for a bomb because they don't know how to extract their enriched uranium in less than months of digging underground, but they want you and me to think that they're able to push for a bomb? Therefore, we should have an incentive to reach a quick agreement with them under which they give up on their rights to get to a bomb. Is that also a possibility? It is to me.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Mati.
So it's very hard to get accurate information now.
Yeah, definitely. If they don't have like an ace up their sleeves, why should the Americans negotiate at all? Let them just, collapse. But if they still have this threat of a nuclear bomb going above the heads of the West and the world, then they have something to give up in order to get the sanctions relief, to get the Strait of Hormuz blockade open up, or to stay alive as the ruling dictator of Iran.
Exactly.
So, very interesting, Mati. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you again later on in our evening report of Boots on the Ground.
I'll see you there, Yael.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mati Shoshani. I'm Yael Pinto. This is Boots on the Ground. and we are reporting to you every single day, twice since this war started, to let you know what's happening, how to pray for the situation, and we call on you to help us. You can help us by subscribing. You can hit the subscribe button on YouTube, and you can look for Yair and Mati Shoshani, Yair Pinto, Mati Shoshani, on our social media platforms to get the behind-the-scene look of what it's like to be in Israel in this war. You know, if you're watching this video, you love Israel. You care about what's happening here. And right now, especially with everything that's going on in the region, the war, the threats from Iran, tourism being down, small Israeli businesses are feeling it in a real way. That's why we want to tell you about something that we personally recommend, and it's called Arza Box. We know the team behind it. We know the heart behind it. And we've seen the impact that they're making here on the ground. Arza creates beautifully curated seasonal boxes filled with handcrafted products from Israeli artisans, small family businesses all across the country. Every box is themed around a biblical location and delivered straight to your door. So when you order, you're not just buying something beautiful, you're directly blessing Israel. And right now, they've just launched their newest seasonal release, the Jordan River Box. This is an incredible piece. The very place where Jesus was baptized, and through Arza, you can feel like you're standing there, here in Israel, with us. This box is designed to bring that experience into your home in a tangible way. It's immersive, it's faith-centered, and it connects you and your family to the land where Jesus walked. And these are seasonal limited boxes. Once this box closes, it does not come back. So if you want to stand with Israel, help the small businesses in a practical way, and deepen your connection to your faith, go to arzabox.com/TBNIL. Again, that's arzabox.com/TBNIL, and make sure to insert the TBNIL coupon code to get 15% off of your subscription. So again, that's arzabox.com and use the code TBNIL for 15% off of your subscription. Thank you for blessing Israel today. A fire broke out at an oil facility in Fujairah after a drone launched from Iran struck the fuel industrial zone in the United Arab Emirates. And at the same time, the United Arab Emirates air defensive systems were activated again and again and again against missiles and against drones. And 3 Indian citizens were injured and taken to the hospital. This is not just another small maritime incident in the Gulf. This is the first time since the ceasefire that Iran has directly attacked one of the Gulf states, while the United States is trying to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So, is this still a limited confrontation over shipping lanes, or are we now watching the ceasefire begin to fall apart in front of our eyes? I'm Yair Pinto, and this is Boots on the Ground, with the summary of Day 67 of the Roaring Lion War, or, as it's known in English, Epic Fury. Today's story begins at sea, but it does not stay at sea. It begins in the Strait of Hormuz, moves to the United Arab Emirates, reaches the decision-making rooms in Washington and Jerusalem, and touches Lebanon, Gaza, oil prices, and one question that the world still has not solved. What do you do with an Iran that is under pressure but still holds a dangerous nuclear capability? In the last few hours, the United States announced that 2 commercial ships flying the American flag crossed the Strait of Hormuz as part of Project Freedom. For Washington, the message was simple. The strait does not belong to the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. It is an international passage, and the United States intends to restore movement through it. But in Tehran, they heard something else. The Revolutionary Guards claimed that no commercial ships or tankers had passed through the strait in recent hours and called the American claims lies. That is part of Iran's war today. Not only missiles, not only drones, but also control of the narrative. If a ship passes, Iran denies it. If a boat is hit, Iran denies it. If an attack gets out of control, Iran says that it was not intentional. On the ground, the picture is different. The commander of the United States Central Command, Admiral Brad Cooper, said Iran launched cruise missiles, drones, and small boats towards the commercial vessels and the American ships. And according to him, American forces destroyed 6 small Revolutionary Guards boats moving towards the ships. The Iranians denied it. A senior military figure in Tehran said that the American claim about sinking Iranian boats was false. But at the same time, Iran's Mehr news agency reported that several commercial barrages caught fire in the port of Bandar Deri in Bushehr province in southern Iran. According to them, the cause is unknown. And here, we need to pause for a moment. In a region like this, where every side denies, every side threatens, and every side tries to present itself as in control, even a small fire at an Iranian port becomes an important detail. Not because we know exactly what happened there, but because it shows the depth of the fog. In this war, sometimes what's not said is almost as important as what was said. Iran tried to present a picture in which it still controls the strait. Iran's Fars news agency claimed that 2 missiles hit an American warship near Jusk Island after the ship refused the Iranian warnings. According to that version, the American ship turned back, but a senior American official denied that story, and CENTCOM issued a clear official statement. No U.S. Navy ships were attacked. Then came a softer Iranian version. An Iranian official told Reuters that Tehran fired warning shots towards an American warship to prevent it from entering the strait. It was not clear whether any damage was caused, and he did not provide a full picture. This is what the area looks like. An Iranian claim, an American denial, a new Iranian version, and then another message trying to save face. But while the sides argue over what happened near Hormuz, in the Emirates, there was no room left for debate. Alerts were activated, air defensive systems entered action, missiles and drones were launched from Iran. The United Arab Emirates Ministry of Defense announced that in total, 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, and 4 drones were detected. Some were intercepted, some fell into the sea, and 1 drone caused a fire at an oil facility in Farjah. This is a very sensitive point. Farjah is not just a port city. It is a strategic asset. It sits outside the Strait of Hormuz, on the coast of the Gulf of Oman, and serves the United Arab Emirates as a critical maritime gateway, even when the strait is blocked. If Iran hits there, and its message is clear, even those who try to bypass Hormuz are not truly safe. And even before this attack, the United Arab Emirates had already accused Iran of attacking a tanker belonging to Abu Dhabi's state oil company, ADNOC. And according to the Emiratis, the tanker was trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz and was attacked by 2 drones, and no injuries were reported in that incident, but the message was severe. Anwar Gargash, advisor to the United Arab Emirates president, wrote that these attacks proved the Iranian threat to security and stability of the region. And after the combined attack, the Emiratis issued another condemnation. This is a dangerous escalation, a direct threat to the country's security and sovereignty, and the United Arab Emirates reserves the right to respond fully. In Tehran, instead of claiming things and calming things down, they chose to issue a warning. An Iranian military source said that if the Emiratis makes mistakes, it will learn a lesson it will never forget. If it takes an unwise step, all of its interests will become targets for Iran. But at almost the same time, another Iranian official told the state media that his country had no plans to harm the United Arab Emirates. That's what a pressure system sounds like. One hand fires, a second hand threatens, a third hand denies. Then media outlets linked to the regime tried to correct the message, including denying the comments that are attributed to the Iranian army commander Amir Hatami, as if the quotes did not come from an account that belonged to him. That does not mean that Iran is not dangerous. The opposite. It means that Iran is especially dangerous because inside the regime, there is a struggle between the need to show strength and the fear of igniting a war that becomes too big. Israel is watching all of this very closely. The military official said that the IDF is monitoring the situation and remains on high alert. There's no change in the Home Front Command instructions, but Israel's air defense systems and offensive capabilities are prepared at a high level of readiness. That level of readiness has not changed since the ceasefire was declared. In simple words, the Israeli public has not received new instructions, but the military is not treating the situation as routine. The Air Force is on high alert. The air defensive systems are on high alert. Military intelligence and the Operations Directorate are following what's happening in the Gulf. Israel is coordinated with the American military, and the defense establishment understands that any American strike in Iran, even a limited one, could bring an Iranian response towards Israel. At this stage, Israel assesses that the Iranians are trying to keep the event limited to the Gulf arena. But that is an assessment, not a guarantee. Iran can decide to act through Hezbollah. It can activate militias in Iraq. It can push the Houthis in Yemen, and it can try to hit ships, oil facilities, or countries that assist the Americans. Inside the Israeli system, the situation is being described as a game of chicken. If Iran backs down and allows the ships to pass, it loses the Hormuz card. If it fights over the passage, it gives the American and possibly Israel a new well, a reason to return to fire. That's why Tehran is trapped. And this is exactly where Trump is trying to apply pressure. The American president sent a sharp message. He said Iran would be wiped off the face of the earth if it attacked the American vessels escorting ships through Hormuz. In another conversation, he was careful not to declare that the ceasefire had been violated. He said it was not heavy fire, that most of it was shut down, and that Iran should hope that the ceasefire remains in place. This is not an accidental contradiction. This is the method. Trump is keeping the door open to a deal, but keeping the gun on the table. He wants Iran to understand that the maritime blockade will continue, that the ships will pass, and that if Iran hits Americans, the price could be very heavy. And at the same time, he's also trying not to declare too quickly that the ceasefire has collapsed. Because once you declare that the ceasefire is broken, the political, military, and economic system enters a completely different mode. And here comes the most important detail. This war is no longer measured only in missiles. It is measured in oil, maritime insurance, trade routes, currencies, airports, and the question of whether shipping companies will agree to enter the Gulf at all. The price of Brent crude jumped quickly after the strike in Fallujah and the fear of escalation. Airlines changed routes. Planes heading to Dubai and Abu Dhabi were forced to turn around or wait. Even Fly Dubai, a flight that took off from Israel, landed in Muscat, the capital of Oman, a country that does not have official relations with the Jewish state. That's a small detail, but it tells you the whole story. When Iran fires in the Gulf, the skies change, the sea changes, the economy changes, and even countries that did not want to be at the center of this war find themselves inside this map. In Oman, there were also reports of a strike on a residential building in the north of the country, near the Strait of Hormuz, with 2 people wounded. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operation Agency reported additional incidents in the maritime space, including vessels that caught fire or were hit by unidentified projectiles. That's why the battle over Hormuz is not only a battle over the passage of ships. It is a battle over who sets the price of global stability. And before we continue, you understand how important it is to bring the full picture from the ground, not just the headlines, but who's acting, who they're acting with, where the threat is coming from, and what's going on. We need your help in spreading the truth. You can do that by liking this report, sharing it with a friend, a family member, anyone who needs to understand the Middle East without filters. And the best thing that you can do is to hit the subscribe button on YouTube so you never miss another update of Boots on the Ground. You can look for Yair Pinto and Mati Shoshani on our social media platforms to get the behind-the-scene look of what it's like to live in Israel. Now, let's get back to the root. The strait is important. The Emiratis are important. The boats are important. But the central problem has not disappeared: the Iranian nuclear program. American intelligence assesses that even after the latest war, the time that Iran would need to build a nuclear weapon has not changed significantly. The estimate stands at around 9 months to 1 year. That's not a small number. It is a very short window for a country that continues to hold a high enriched uranium and prevents the world from getting the full picture of where is it or what's the plans to use it. The IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, still has not been able to verify the location of about 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. According to assessments, if this material is enriched to a higher level, it could provide a significant amount of material for several bombs. And that is why Israel and the United States cannot be satisfied only with opening Hormuz. If the ships pass, but the uranium remains hidden, the problem has not been solved. It has only changed arenas. Before the war, American assessments spoke of 3 to 6 months until breakout. After the strikes in Natanz, in Fordo, and Isfahan, the timeline was pushed back, but it did not disappear. The strikes hit down the enrichment facilities, but knowledge cannot be bombed. Facilities can be destroyed. Equipment can be damaged. Practical expertise can be eliminated. But a nuclear program like this one is not erased by a slogan. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the damage on Iran's air defensive systems reduced Tehran's ability to protect its nuclear sites in the future. There is also a significant elimination of scientists and senior figures in the program. But the conclusion remains difficult. Iran is still dangerous, and it is still trying to buy time. And that is what Tehran is doing in the negotiations as well. The Iranians are demanding, first of all, the opening of Hormuz, the removal of the maritime blockade, the release of frozen assets, guarantees of non-attack, the end of the fighting on all fronts, including Lebanon, and only afterwards, serious talks about the nuclear issue. So from Israel's perspective, that cannot work, because if Iran receives money, time, trade, and relief from the military pressure, without giving up a nuclear program, it has not ended the war. It has received a pause to reorganize and renegotiate. That's why Jerusalem is preparing for every kind of scenario. There is a possibility that the blockade will continue without broad fire and will keep strangling the Iranian economy. There is a possibility of a limited American strike intended to push Iran back to the table from a weaker position. There is a possibility of a maritime flare-up in Hormuz, and there is also a scenario which Iran activates its proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq, or terrorist networks abroad. In the north, the situation is already heating up. Israel says that the negotiations with Lebanon through American mediation are continuing, but Israeli officials describe them as going nowhere. Not because the diplomatic channel has no importance, but because the Lebanese government does not want and is not truly able to disarm Hezbollah. Meanwhile, the IDF continues to operate in southern Lebanon. Israeli officials say that Hezbollah will pay a heavy price for violations of the ceasefire. The IDF has 2 divisions in the area, one in defense and one in offense. And the message to Hezbollah is clear. This situation will not continue for long. The threat is not only rockets. It is warehouses, launchers, infrastructure inside villages, anti-tank squads, drones, and increasingly cheap and accurate tools learned from other battlefields, including Ukraine. Hezbollah is trying to rebuild capabilities under civilian cover. Israel is trying to dismantle them before they return in full strength to the borderline. Iran understands this. That's why it is demanding in its proposals an end to the fighting in Lebanon as well. Not because it is worried about the people of Lebanon, because Hezbollah is one of the strategic assets that it still has on the border with Israel, close distance, with the ability to invade underground and carry attacks through the air, through small UAVs and smaller missiles. If the organization is being worn down in southern Lebanon, Iran wants to save it through a wider agreement. And at the same time, in Gaza, Israel is not rushing to open a third front. The negotiations with Hamas over the disarmament have collapsed, but Israel says that there is currently no desire to return immediately to a full-scale fighting in the Gaza Strip. Hamas still controls about 47% of Gaza's territory and benefits from the entry of food trucks and humanitarian aid through Israel, by the way. But Israel assesses that it no longer has the capabilities that it once had. The sentence that is being said behind the scene is very sharp. If Hamas does not agree to disarm, Israel will eventually be forced to return to fighting. But not now. Not while Iran and Lebanon may explode. And that means that Israel is not managing one war today, but a system of fires. In Hormuz, the Americans are trying to open a route. In the United Arab Emirates, Iran is testing the boundaries. In Lebanon, Hezbollah is trying to stay alive under pressure. In Gaza, Hamas is trying to buy time and rebuild. And inside Iran, the regime is trying to project control while the economy is being strangled and the political system absorbs the pressure. In the international arena as well, Trump is increasing pressure. He's trying to reduce the American forces in Europe after countries such as Spain and Italy refuse to cooperate with parts of the effort against Iran. In Germany, Italy, and Spain, there are bases and infrastructure that are important not only for NATO, but also for the logistics of operations in the Middle East. That's why this move is worrying security officials in Europe and in the United States Congress. But from Trump's perspective, the message is simple. If allies do not help when the United States asks, why should the United States continue carrying the security burden alone? This is no longer only about Iran. This is a question about an entire world order. Who protects the trade routes? Who pays for security? Who stands with the United States at the moment of truth? And who enjoys the American umbrella, but disappears when it's time to act? And inside all of this, Iran is trying to present itself as the side holding all the cards. But the reality is more complicated. If Iran allows passage, it admits that the United States broke its blockade. If it attacks, it risks a wider war. If it threatens the Emirates, it pushes the Gulf states closer to Washington and Jerusalem. And if it continues to hold enriched uranium without transparency, it leaves the main reason for the war on the table. That is Tehran's trap. It wanted to turn Hormuz into a pressure card, but the more it uses it as a card, the more the world looks for other ways around it. Shipping companies examine sea and lane routes through Saudi Arabia. Gulf states test alternative routes. Oil infrastructure inside the strait becomes more important. Every such solution is expensive, slow, and complicated. But it says one thing. When the world understands that a strategic passage has become a tool of blackmail, it begins building another road. Still, there is no room here for easy optimism. Iran still has missiles. It still has drones. It has fast boats, naval mines, coastal missiles, regional proxies, and the patience of a regime that knows how to live under pressure. Wounded regimes do not always surrender. Sometimes they escalate in order not to look broken. That's why Day 67 is a dangerous day. It does not end with the question of who fired first. It ends with the question of who will lose room to maneuver first. Iran under the blockade, Trump under political and economic pressure, Hezbollah under erosion in southern Lebanon, or the energy markets under fear of a wider flare-up. The fire in Fajirah may have been put out on the ground, but strategically, it is still burning. If Iran keeps firing to defend the Hormuz card, Will the next blow come from the sea, from the air, from Lebanon, or from one decision inside the White House? Let me know what you think will happen in the comments. In the meantime, keep spreading the truth. Follow us, and most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time and never miss another update of Boots on the Ground. I'm Yair Pinto, with me is Mati Shoshani, and we are the Boots on the Ground, reporting to you everything that's happening in Israel. Last thing that I ask of you is to unite in prayer. Pray for the wisdom of our leaders, for the IDF soldiers, for the children of this land. Know that the enemy is attacking the family unit of Israel. I call on you to pray for the husband, the wife, the family unit, so that God will give them supernatural protection. This unit is under a lot of stress, not just rockets, missiles, also separation of months at a time between a husband and a wife, a mother and the children, husband and the children. Let's pray for this unit to be strong, to stay united, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.